So, I wanted to go over a couple books. The other day I was kind of analyzing my reading pattern, and it seems like I'm really just reading a lot of contemporary work and kind of get disappointed and go back to reading classical literature, and then I just go back and forth. But I think what I'm really interested in the most is writing that has a particular voice or style or language, especially language. And um, this also kind of plays into a condition that I have, which is known as synesthesia. Synesthesia is a condition that where two senses will get crossed with each other. Some musicians have this, where when they listen to music, they can actually see it or taste it. In my particular case, when I read the letters and numbers to me have colors, and it it's always I've always had this condition. My brother has it as well, and I know one other person. But I think that really plays into what I find interesting when I read and what sticks with me the most. So some of these writers, I believe themselves are synesthetes. So I think when they are composing, or when they did compose, they do it in such a way to maximize the color of their prose. Ted Hughes, I find, is someone who has an extremely colorful palette in his poems. There's Nabokov. He's pretty famous for being a synesthete himself. He also has characters in some of his books that are synesthetes. I recently read Invitation to a Beheading and what is the other one? Laughter in the Dark. And those books, they just totally popped. You can tell that he composes with color in mind. Another writer who I'm not for sure himself if he was a synesthete himself, but his his poetry really stands out, maybe because of how dense it is, and I think in addition to having colorful prose, that kind of goes hand in hand with the, uh, the the diction that's chosen, especially if it's words that are um, you know, not really commonly seen, and then they're put together with other words not commonly seen to create new phrases. I find that interesting. There a lot of writing, however, uh, will have a lot of, I guess, what I would call connective tissue words, like certain um, prepositional phrases or conjunctions or just received language, idioms, those kind of things. When I read and I'm not really uh, challenged, when I can predict how a phrase is going to end, then the words, despite their color, will get shaded out in my mind. But Rimbaud is one who really sticks out for me. Another writer who used to compose very dense work. This was his first book, Ben Marcus, The Age of Wire and String. This was one of my favorite collections. Very dense prose poems. Um, this is sort of like a catalog of an alternate civilization. This is his latest book here, which has an awesome cover. But yeah, this is more of a traditional collection, at least some of the stories in there. But I wanted to show you guys what the words or these pieces themselves would look like in my mind. So what I did was I actually mapped it out. And sorry for the shaky camera work here. Um, this is uh, this is a piece from Ben Marcus's first uh, book, and you can see what my algorithm is with regards to color. It's consistent, but it doesn't necessarily match up with other synesthetes. Everybody's got their own individual algorithm. And this is a mapping out of the color for one of the later stories, which this story actually left me kind of cold when I read it, and I was trying to understand why. And mapping it out, it does seem colorful to me. So I don't know if that was really it. I'll kind of discuss what I found later. This is a poem called Vowels by Rimbaud. This particular English translation. And then right here is the original French. I don't know how to read French. I'm trying to learn. But French for me has a lot of vowels in it, so some of these vowels show up as being white and blue. And here is a poem by Ted Hughes. Okay. So I kind of gave it some thought, and I was like, well, the fact that everything for me when I read has color, but some has more impact than others, and I kind of came to the conclusion that it was certain words and phrases, like I mentioned before, in their usage, just really gets amplified. It amplifies the color. So if I pick out the words, let's say in the first Marcus piece, that I found powerful, it would look like this. Now, compared to the second piece, which actually to me did not have many powerful words in it, a lot of it to me seemed like standard traditional language, and so it didn't leave as much of an impact. In fact, what it ended up doing was it kind of got shaded out in my mind. There's very little for me to grasp and remember. Here's Vowels by Rimbaud. Even the English translation has a lot of color. And here is the Ted Hughes poem. Just a lot of words that popped out. He even used certain words like colors, rainbow, spectrum. Kind of gives you the impression that he has color in mind when he's composing. But yeah, I guess this was. I came to the conclusion that I enjoy writing that has a really colorful palette in conjunction with um, certain, I guess, certain poetic, not really often used words put together. In fact, some of my most memorable reading experiences uh, is just very strange. Here, let me show you, for example. What I what I do, I have this computer program that prints out just random words, and um, the program just will eliminate the connective tissue words as much as possible. And what I find that I like to do is I just like to read through random strings of words that occasionally I'll find some that, when put together next to each other, just just does it for me. It it just gets so imbued with color, and it's a satisfying read. Um, but this is kind of extreme. And here in this case, of course, it's kind of a visual thing, a poetic thing, but then I find that I start to compose off of this and insert my own meaning. So reading in this fashion is also creating. And I think ultimately that's what I enjoy about certain text is the less connective tissue there is, the less chance for, uh, I guess, standard representations of reality to creep in, and you know, the more work the reader has to do. I like work where the reader is invited to participate in the creation of the work, and for me, I guess that's it's the difference between being active and passive. But yeah, these are just some thoughts about reading habits and synesthesia. Thanks a lot.